Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome at the EIC Summit, and in particular here in this session about the European Innovation Council and the Single Market Programme. The objective, of course, is that we want to make sure that innovators, startups, can make good use of all the different programs that we have at the European level to support them. And as we have different programs, we want to make sure that there are good synergies and that our beneficiaries know what they can get from which program, but also how they can ensure that they can get the right support from the different programs, and that we offer that in a very fluent way between these different programs. I have here today a panel with colleagues who are working for both the Single Market Programme in ESMEA as well as the European Innovation Council. And they will tell you a little bit about what they in particular do for the startups, for the SMEs that are trying to bring their innovations to the market. And so you will hear something about the EIC in itself, but primarily on how the SMP can help you and help you grow your business. So I'll just briefly introduce the different speakers that we have here today here with us, and we have two speakers joining us online. First of all, we have here right next to me Igor Kalinic. He's the head of sector of the competitiveness and internationalization sector. Then we have next to Igor, we have Valentino Izzo, who is a senior project officer, I should say, for the European clusters. Then we have Gunnar Mathiessen, Senior Project Officer for Enterprise Europe Network. We have Rebecca de Sancho Mayoral, also Project Officer. She's dealing with the EIC Accelerator. And then the last one here on the stage is Ralf Dieselhorst, Senior Project Officer for ESMEA, dealing with Erasmus entrepreneurs. Then we have two guests online. I don't know if you can see them already on the screen, but we have Gianluigi Tiberi, who's representing one of the companies who's actually benefiting from both the EIC as well as the SMP. And then we have with us as well Reyes Sansegundo from the Enterprise Europe Network in Madrid. Welcome to all of you. I will stop talking here because we have, as you can see, a very full program for these 45 minutes, and I will try to be strict and keeping everybody to their time so we can finish at 2:45. First on the list of speakers is Igor, who will give a broader presentation about the Single Market Programme and the SME pillar. Igor, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Robert, and welcome everybody here and online. So I will just very, very briefly talk a little bit what is the SMP program and what are the main things, how it works, and how we can help innovative startup companies that we really want to make some difference. So let's start with the first slide. Is it working? Okay, I don't see the slides here, so just a little bit of technical. Okay, I can maybe start talking about the program. Okay, now I have it. Okay, thank you very much. I went actually too far. So, well, this is the big picture about the budget of the European Union. As you can see, there are a lot of numbers in there, a lot of pictures, and a lot of programs. And we also realized that there were a lot of different programs that were also working on the single market. And basically a year ago, sometimes ago, but in the end, a year ago, the European Commission decided to harmonize a little bit all the different projects that are aiming at implementing and improving the single market in which European businesses work. In particular, when it comes to the SMEs, we have different programs. We will focus here on the Single Market Programme and the SME pillar. And of course, within this, we have European Innovation Council also within this conference. So that is very important. One very important initiative is also InvestEU. However, this is a much broader picture and it's not going to be part of today's presentation. However, if you have any question, feel free to come later. I will just go quickly over the picture. The single market program is a 7-year program. It has 4.2 billion euros. And the main objective is actually to harmonize, to develop one of the main assets of the European Union, which is the single market. As I said earlier, there were different programs that were put together. And now we have 5 pillars and 1 horizontal. This horizontal program part is European statistics. This is absolutely very, very important for the policymakers because we are making policies based on real numbers, on scientific data. And then we have the 5 pillars, as I mentioned earlier, each one focusing on a very specific area. What is interesting for us today is the second one, that is, as you can see there on the slide in the right, which is about the SMEs. Briefly about the budget. And the one about SMEs is about really fostering the competitiveness and sustainability of European small companies. So when we talk about the small and medium enterprises, we are not talking only about the most innovative startup, scale-up companies, the one that want to grow quick and fast, but we talk in general about the ecosystem. And of course, within this ecosystem, we can also find support for the most dynamic companies. Some of the things that we are focused on is reducing the administrative burden, continuing testing ideas and different schemes also for the national administrations, improving the availability of data also for the smaller companies to be able to make more sounded marketing plans. And also we try to seek synergies with other EU programs and member states' actions. More in specific, how a single market, how a program, this is actually valid for most of the programs within European Commission. So we can basically divide what the program offers in 2 main things, in tenders and grants. Tenders, it's more or less when we know what we want, but we want someone external to execute it. And for example, some examples are studies. So these are the studies that provide data about the state of art, for example, of the SME sector across Europe, or something more specific, for example, study on legal protection of trade secrets. When it comes to another part of tenders is events, such like an event like this one, that is, we ask actually external contractors to do these events for us. Because they are expert, they can do it actually much more professional. When it comes to the grants, these are when we are looking for bottom-up ideas. So it is when we don't know actually what we are looking for really innovative. We just know the general goal where we want to go. And we ask the civil society to come up, economic players, to come up with some consortia, with ideas to implement these policies together. In this perspective, we can broadly, generally say that we have actions that are on capacity building, and some others that are in the support to the third parties. When it comes to the support to the third parties, so this is, for example, we are organizing consortia to provide support to the SMEs to become, for example, more digital, more innovative in the tourism sector. For the capacity building, and this is actually quite interesting for the young dynamic startup companies, especially the ones that want to go international. And a lot of you guys actually have to go international in order to be able to grow. We have actions such as international intellectual property help desks. These are the international help desks that are situated in China, Southeast Asia, Latin America, and one recently opened in India. And this is really should be a point where you should stop, and then where the company should stop and ask for information before entering those markets in order to be able to protect their IP. On the other side, we have also actions. We have organized entities such as EU-Japan Center for Industrial Cooperation or EU-China SME Center. So these are the centers that actually help you in finding local partners, understanding the local laws, and a number of different things that are specific for the market. One example that I really like to cite is the EU-Japan Center for Industrial Cooperation. As you can see, it's industrial cooperation, and it is because it was founded, I think, in 1988-89. And at that point, the objective was to have a big industrial cooperation between big European companies and Japanese companies. 20, 30 years later, down the road, this center is not anymore industrial cooperation. It's about SMEs. It's basically 100% focused on smaller companies. And this is also shows how the world has changed. The internationalization of the companies has changed. But also the Commission is adapting. We didn't adapt the name for a number of historical reasons, but actually the purpose and the day-to-day business has changed. Next to these initiatives that are more focused, let's say, ad hoc actions, we have a free flagship projects that my colleagues will be talking about. One is Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs, then we have Enterprise Europe Network, and Joint Cluster Initiative, right? Euroclusters, it's wrongly written actually there. That will be all from my side. We'll be happy to get some questions, answer to some questions later on.
Great, thanks.
To you, Robert.
Thanks very much, Igor, for this broad overview of the SMP program and what it can do. You already mentioned these three flagship initiatives, and we will go through all of these three. So that's the European Clusters Partnership, the Enterprise Europe Network, and the Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs. And let's start with that last one. Ralph, could you please say something about that?
Robert, thank you very much, and thank you very much, Igor, for the introductory words and picturing this initiative in the larger frame of the EU funding program. To say one word, Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs, we consider to put this initiative here on the panel because we considered it as a sort of early stage support for entrepreneurs, would-be entrepreneurs, so those who want to set up a business, but also those who have already established businesses and help those young ones or new ones to actually support them in business creation. It is part of what we consider a little bit the client journey, where we can see those participants who are interested in the Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs program to get in contact with a mentor, and the mentor here is an experienced business somewhere else in another country in Europe. So exactly what Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs does is it gives a capacity building support to anyone who has just set up a business, is about to, and has less than 3 years of entrepreneurial experience. It can be in any economic sector. What the candidates must have is a business idea and a business plan. And then out there, across Europe, there are about 180 organizations, chambers of commerce, chambers of crafts, incubators, etc. We have a big landscape and rather well geographical coverage of those organizations, helping these entrepreneurs to find the best suitable matching entrepreneur somewhere else in Europe. And then we organize the matches. Between 1 and 6 months, these entrepreneurs go abroad and they are hosted by someone who is called the host entrepreneur. And now I've talked about these two, the new entrepreneurs and the host entrepreneurs. And why I did so is not only because it's the core of the program, but also with view to the rest, to the other funding opportunities and the EIC. I believe Erasmus is there to some extent also for the EIC, because we have many, many mature businesses where host entrepreneurs who are always company owners, or they're sitting at least in the board. So they're involved in strategic decision-making in SMEs. They could be candidates for further innovation support, for further internationalization support, and they could be a good and a rich source for the fundings, let's say, along the journey, namely the Enterprise Europe Network, but also more specific ones. And there's also another side, maybe that other funding programs, including the EIC, they could enrich the Erasmus for Entrepreneurs program simply by saying that we have very, very good companies benefiting a lot from EU funds and having very, very high innovative potential. So why not using those and giving the chance to some new entrepreneurs who would actually like to make that step in the future? So I see there is, two sides of a coin where we can bring these two together. And I think here I stop. That's the picture of the program. We want to help businesses to be created, and we want to help others to gain more access to international markets.
Thanks, Ralph. That's very clear. And first of all, thanks to both Igor and yourself to stick within the time. That's a great start. And Ralph, also thanks very much for making this crossover between what Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs does and the EIC. I think that's a very good example, and it gives exactly what we're trying to achieve with this session. Now let's move forward to talk about, or to hear about, the European clusters. Valentino, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Robert, and good afternoon, everybody. I wanted to maybe start by mentioning a bit the role of a cluster can play and make a distinction actually with clusters are not only business service providers, and in this sense they are much different from EN partners you will hear afterwards. Clusters actually should go beyond. They have another mission and different opportunities. What really defines them, I think, are trust and geographical proximity. The combination of these two elements allow clusters actually to be able, on one side, to know well a region, what are the challenges and the needs in a specific region, and also know what are the solutions that are on the market and that could help solve those challenges. And as such, cluster can play certainly a role as an intermediary towards public authorities, can help frame a bit the context, can help frame the challenges and provide solutions. And then they can also play an important role as mobilizing actors and reaching out to SMEs. If you consider that more than 95% of the SMEs in Europe are micro, you can understand that there are some SMEs that are not even aware there is an innovation or a technology out there they could use. They are not aware. If they are aware of the technology, they don't know how they can benefit from it. So they will not even go to a business service providers and ask for support. So clusters have an important opportunity there and role to play to reach out to these SMEs and to demonstrate and showcase what is there on the market for them. We could see with many examples of initiatives we funded so far, we could actually experience how clusters could actually play these roles. And just to give you one example of how they could, for example, mobilize all the actors in an ecosystem. We had recently, I don't know if you are aware that the European Commission established a task force on COVID-19 to scale up vaccine and therapeutics production. And here clusters played a fundamental role. The European Cluster Collaboration Platform, which is one of the main initiatives on clusters, organized several matchmaking opportunities. And the clusters play a fundamental role identifying the key actors in the vaccine production value chain, and they could mobilize in very short time. I think in 3 weeks everything was organized due to the urgency, obviously, of the event. They mobilized more than 400 specialized actors. This is just to give one example. So knowing the important role clusters can play, also as actors of innovation, the European Commission launched several initiatives. The European Cluster Collaboration Platform is a platform to enable collaboration. First of all, we have behind the platform a community of almost 8,000 actors, not only clusters, but also cluster members, so SMEs, and basically all the actors of the quadruple helix. And but it offers also opportunity. It can play the role of a technology platform. It can play the role of a discussion forum. You know how important it is in innovation, the co-creation and therefore collaboration. It can offer services. It can offer matchmaking opportunities. We work together with EN to have also a B2B component you could benefit from. And we collaborate with clusters in enhancing upskilling and reskilling of the workforce, which is also an important need of innovative SMEs. Besides this, we have also launched one of the flagship initiative was mentioned before, the Eurocluster call. This is actually a call that supports clusters, but at the end it supports SMEs, because this is a call of 42 million that is closing next Tuesday. We will finance 30 cluster consortia, but at the end, out of this 42 million, at least 75% of this money will have to go directly to SMEs, to grow, to become greener, to become more digital, and to build up a resilient ecosystem. So more than 30 million will therefore go directly either as grants or as vouchers, for example, innovation vouchers. And I see that I'm just on time, so I'll stop here, but I could talk much more, and I'm here for questions. Thanks.
Fantastic, Valentino. Thanks very much. And also very interesting to hear about that concrete example around COVID to get a better understanding on what really the added value is and how it works in practice. Thank you for that. So now let's turn also to our speakers that are joining us online. And could I welcome Reyes from EEN in Madrid to join the virtual stage and to talk about her experiences.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I'm so glad to be here and to see all the synergies that we have with the different support services. I'm here today to tell you about the Enterprise Europe Network, the EEN. We are the biggest support network for SMEs with international ambitions, and what we do is to provide free of charge services for our clients in a unique client journey approach that has been mentioned before. We try to develop highly personalized services for established companies and also for the innovative ones. Just to give you some examples of the services that we do, we perform target partner search, we do technology transfer activities, innovation management support. We also give internationalization advice and access to finance support. And we do it to enable our companies to succeed internationally. Internally, we are organized in 17 sector groups to focus in different technology areas. And one of the biggest is the sector group healthcare, to which I belong. And not only in this sector, but also in the whole network regarding the EIC, we have been developing specific services. This is a really important target for our companies, and we try to develop innovative support services, always in cooperation with the national contact points. And I will give you an example that of a service that we have set up in Madrid, in my region. We call it the EIC Mentoring, and it is a global support service in which we try to accompany our clients in all phases of the accelerator of the EIC, starting in the short proposal and ending when they reach the interview in Brussels. Just on Thursday, one of our clients that was precisely for the healthcare sector, they had the virtual interview with the EIC jury, and we have prepared them with several previous simulations of the panel pitch, of the discussion, of the questions, just to give them confidence. And now we are keeping our fingers crossed to have positive results. This is only one example of a specific EIC service that we have launched. And now we will listen to Gianluigi, a success story also in the health sector. And I would just take advantage of this speech to ask Gianluigi as a participant in this type of scheme, if he can give us some ideas or suggestions to improve our services as a network. I leave the question open, and this is all from my side right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Reyes. And we've listened to your question to Gianluigi, who will be with us in a second. But first of all, I think it's the example that you make about preparing beneficiaries who are applying for the accelerator to give them mentoring support. That is exactly the kind of synergies that we're of course looking for, and where we can see how the different programs can work together and help our potential beneficiaries and hopefully our real beneficiaries. But then let's turn to Gianluigi, who's joining us online from the company UBT. Gianluigi, are you with us? And I hope you clearly heard the question that Reyes put before you to give us also further information about if you see rooms for improvement.
Yes, so thanks for the question and for the invitation in this workshop. Yes, I think that the point that Reyes mentioned, it's really, really important. Actually, we as UBT had lucky to be involved in the preparation of two main instruments, phase 1 and then succeed after this also phase 2. And the national regional of Umbria service, which is called the Svilup Umbria, basically did a kind of mentoring like you are provided to the company in your region. And that was really, really helpful, because having this kind of mentoring preparation of interview was really important for us, because you know, once you go to Brussels, okay, you have interview, you have 50%, let's say, to succeed, but it's important to be prepared. And room of improvement, basically, I think that these things about doing a simulation of question and answer are fundamental in this. At that time, I mean, the only room for improvement is about, let's say, trying to make concise response, because sometimes, you know, when you are there, you have a limited time, so you have to think carefully how to use that time. So I think that training, yes, doing more training, it's definitely important, yes. And also another thing, it's kind of proposal revision. Basically, once the proposal is ready, just to give an overview and highlighting the weakness, and especially in terms of how it's the reviewer would like to see the improvement. So I know that this putting your experience to the beneficiary of the other, let's say, submission will be really, really helpful. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you, Gianluigi. I think that's very useful for all the people here in the room to get that feedback from you as a beneficiary of both programs, and to get these messages about training, about being concise, being short, because that is what is needed during the interviews, and then to have the feedback, of course, so you can use that again. Then I would like to move actually to the other program, to the EIC, and particularly EIC Accelerator, you've heard that mentioning a couple of times already. So Rebecca, please, could I ask you to say something more about the EIC Accelerator, and perhaps also on how you could see how the SMP program and the different elements of that could help?
Yeah, hello. Thank you, Robert, and hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm happy to be here also because I've been previously on the single market program, working with the colleagues here. So I very much see all the connections now being at the EIC. And the first thing that I would like to see is the crosspaths between both initiatives, the single market program initiatives that have been mentioned. And the EIC, as I see, it's as building blocks, like could be a pyramid. And the first solid building block is that all these initiatives could help the EIC to scout for these companies and SMEs that are very innovative and are looking for additional funding and to grow their innovations, to have impactful innovations, and they are scaling up. So that would be the first element in this scouting of companies at national, regional level through all the different actors that are involved in all the initiatives that we've heard, but also they can help giving us, it's been mentioned, the capacity building. And this is a very important element because they can help with the application to our instruments, and they can help also beyond. Once they've reached the top of the pyramid, they can help as well with clusters, for instance, or other initiatives that come along the need of the SME or the startup, like could be IPR, help desk, for instance, just coming to my head. So I started from that, but I have to start also saying, what are we looking for in the EIC? We have different instruments from Pathfinder, Transition to Accelerator, as you mentioned. It depends on the stages of the SMEs and the startups, from the research to the deployment of the company and the project idea, the innovation. For instance, in the accelerator, we are looking for what we call a level of technology readiness that is between 5 and 6 until 9. So it's like the go-to-market and the commercialization of the innovation. Those companies that we are looking for need to be really in the process of scaling up, and usually in the need for a lot of financing that they cannot, and funding that they cannot achieve alone. And we crowd in with other investors, and we help them to have a label that will allow them to get this additional support. And then something relevant to pinpoint, we are sector agnostic, but there's also on the challenges call that we target specific priorities of the Commission. That was the case for the digitalization in this year, and also on the Green Deal. So I see very much all the things that I've mentioned, and I know from the Enterprise Europe Network with the sectors, with the clusters, that can help all these companies. Also in these building blocks that I said, pyramid, drafting the proposals and helping them to understand how they can apply for the funding. Besides that, I think, as we see today, it's very good news that we create synergies among us and also other actors at local, national, or regional level. I see very well placed, for instance, the Enterprise Europe Network to catalyze all these, the local SMEs, innovative SMEs, together with the EIC. And another element that it touches very much to me, for instance, the actions on the women entrepreneurs, scouting those women entrepreneurs that we still have low numbers. We've come a long way to get more women entrepreneurs in our EIC program and portfolio of companies, but we need also to get more support. And I couldn't close without saying that I think, we need to create synergies between the ecosystem, but we need to create synergies between the people that we are here today. And I think the rest of the people listening to us can be reassured that we are doing that. And I hope they get to the final line. And also, like Reyes was saying, to the participants or future beneficiaries, they continue applying. And I wish them good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you so much for giving a bit better insight in how the EIC also works. And I think in this session, we really now have received quite a good overview of both the programs and with quite a few examples of these potential synergies. And as we are now indeed all together in one agency, I think that last point that you make about the persons here, at least behind the scenes, I would say for the beneficiaries, that we really should try and on our side to do as much as possible to better work together and to create these synergies between the programs. I just want to give the last the word to Gunnar as the last speaker of this session, and then perhaps we still have a few moments for one or two questions from the audience here, or if there are people online who would have questions. But first, Gunnar, please go ahead.
Robert, thank you very much, and very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be wrapping up this session here this afternoon with another excursion towards the Enterprise Europe network again, and I would like to do that by picking up on what my colleague and friend Reyes pictured and pointed out, the support we can provide to individual companies. I'd just like to inform you essentially that we have a specific action, specific program to help two very specific, very distinct and very distinctive target audiences of the EIC to make even more of the possibilities that they have under this exceptional program. One of them are companies in those regions, those countries where the EIC has so far not had the impact that it would like to achieve. And we're there as Enterprise Europe Network to help all companies in what is referred to as widening countries under Horizon Europe to become better candidates for the EIC, to be the sort of companies that the EIC is looking for, with a specific program for capacity building, for application, for finding the right sort of priorities that are also funded through the EIC. And with that, we hope that we can contribute to an even wider, even more successful EIC through the Enterprise Europe Network. And a little bit in parallel to that, we do exactly the same thing for women-led enterprises, something, Rebecca, that you have already referred to as well. Women-led enterprises are not sufficiently represented in the EIC, and in very much the same way as for the widening countries, we try and build capacities with those companies together to help them access the opportunities that are available through the EIC. And then finally, we have a third target audience, which is, in a way, the poor sods that get left out. The people who receive a very good evaluation from the EIC, who are told, you've got a super project, we'd really like to fund you. But sorry guys, we haven't got the cash. In other words, the holders of the Seal of Excellence. And what we do at Enterprise Europe Network is to assist them, help them find alternative funding, alternative finance for their projects, as proposed to the EIC, but possibly as revised for an alternative funding program that we can direct them to. And we will help them adapt their project to those funding programs if need be as well. Now, I think that is as much as I would like to say here. So with big thanks for your attention, I hand the floor back to you, Robert. Thank you.
Fantastic, Gunnar. Thank you so much, and also very interesting to hear about this specific support for companies in widening countries and also the Seal of Excellence. I think these are very good initiatives that we're trying to take, and it's great to see that you are bringing the support on the ground to actually make this happen, for these companies to make use of these opportunities that we have, but are very often quite difficult in practice to realize. I think we might just have time for one question from the audience. I see the gentleman at the back. Could you perhaps just state your name and where you are, where you are from, what you're doing? And I will just have to repeat the question to the audience also, so they can hear it listening online.
So my name is Latif, and I'm a founder of an AI healthcare startup. You want to repeat it now?
Yeah, please.
The question is around actually the frequency and time frame of support from the lens of EIC and the lens of startups. For me as a startup, the traditional lens of time frame of, say, a year in the startup world or as an innovator, as a founder, is actually more the equivalent of 1 month or 2 months. And so whereas traditionally these programs are structured around an annual or biannual basis, obviously a big part of that is the organizational bandwidth and coordination required. You do it as a big wave of reviews. In the real world, from a startup, that is an eternity to do things on such a long cycle. And actually, my question is whether there's been any additional consideration for the commensurate frequency or the proportional frequency for this world as it relates to other worlds. You know, corporate worlds, 1 year is 1 year. That is actually a standard cycle.
Okay. Let me perhaps, because of the time, I'll quickly recap the question also for the audience. I think the main element that you're mentioning here is on the frequency, that startups usually work on a much shorter time scale where they need decisions on funding opportunities, whereas, of course, the programs that we deal with have a longer running time with decision making. I think, Rebecca, perhaps this is most appropriate for you to answer.
Yeah, I'll take that one. Thank you. I do agree that in the pilot phase, the length was of that matter, but we are working in the new EIC, and just happened with the first cutoff that was in June, and then the results were announced quite quickly. So we are working on that. I take your point. Also on the funding side, you have to keep in mind that it was the pilot phase, and we build on all the lessons learned from the past. And we've shortened that. Like now there are the interviews of the EIC Accelerator. The cutoff was announced a month ago, and we will give the results as soon as possible. And then we'll start with the proceedings of signing the grant. So as we speak, we are ongoing with all this and shortening the time. Yeah,
exactly. I think that's an important point to make, that we are very much aware of this situation, and we're really trying to do our best to shorten as much as possible these response times that we have to really benefit you, because we know that the issue is there, and we're trying to do our best to improve on that. Good. I think we've come to the end of our session. I would like to first thank you, the panelists, of course, here, but also Reyes and Gianluigi, who have joined us online. Thanks very much for your contributions and for explaining more about the SMP and about the EIC, and of course, most importantly, how we can bridge these two programs in order to do what we have always set out to do, is supporting our startups and our SMEs in Europe, and to give them the opportunities to grow and succeed, not only in the European, but also in the global market. Thanks very much again to the speakers, and thanks for the audience here and at home for joining us. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the summit. Thank you.
Okay, I think we can quit.